Welcome to the Explainer. Let's talk about something wild. Can a place, a physical location, create a sound? And I don't mean just any sound. I'm talking about one so powerful it could literally transform a person, and then, eventually, an entire kingdom. Our story today starts in a small town with a very, very big idea.
All right, so our story kicks off in the ancient hills of Israel, in a town called Ramah. Now, the name itself is a huge clue. In Hebrew, it means height. And this wasn't just about being on a tall hill. It was seen as a spiritual peak, a special spot where heaven and earth could actually connect.
So let's just dive right into the big question. How is this even possible? It sounds a little out there, right? A town making a sound that changes a whole nation? Well, the answer is pretty amazing, and it has everything to do with a completely radical new way of thinking about worship. So what was the secret sauce in Ramah? At the very heart of it was this incredible institution founded by the prophet Samuel. And it wasn't a temple, it wasn't a palace, it was a school for prophets.
And listen, this was not your average school. Samuel's big idea was to create a place that could literally cultivate divine knowledge. He was training students to be, well, conduits for the divine. And their number one tool for doing this? A totally new, profound kind of musical worship. This wasn't about putting on a show, it was about using music to connect with and express the very spirit of God.
And just get a load of this curriculum. I mean, wow. It's this amazing blend of deep wisdom and law, right alongside science, poetry, and even hands-on manual training. They were teaching the whole person. The idea was that every single part of your life, your mind, your spirit, your work, was all just one note in this huge, beautiful, divine symphony.
Okay, so we've got the theory, but how did this new sound actually play out in the real world? Well, its first big test case was a guy named Saul, who was about to become the very first king of Israel.
You have to picture this. Saul is just walking along, probably not thinking about much, when he runs into this group, this band of prophetic musicians from Ramah. And the music they're playing is so powerful, so different, that the scripture says the Spirit of the Lord just comes down on him, and boom, he's a changed man. This was the moment that proved it. This worship coming out of Ramah had real, tangible power to change a person from the inside out.
And what Saul went through really gets to the heart of what they believed back then, this deep, unbreakable link between worship, prophecy, and the Spirit. This music wasn't just for entertainment, not at all. It was a direct line, a channel for divine communication and total transformation.
Okay, so the sound is powerful. We've established that. But how do you scale that up? How do you go from changing one person to changing an entire kingdom? Well, that's where our next major player comes in. That echo from Ramah found its way to a young shepherd boy. You've probably heard of him, David.
And David he got it. He was a musician, a poet himself, so he knew exactly how powerful this connection was. But here's the thing about David. He wasn't satisfied just experiencing it for himself. He wanted to give this sound a permanent home. He wanted to crank up the volume for the whole nation to hear. So think about this. When David becomes king, what's his first big move? Is it building a bigger army? A fancier palace? Nope. It's building a national house of worship. He decided to take this spontaneous, fiery music that started in Ramah and make it official, to make it the literal heartbeat of his entire kingdom. But whoa, that is a massive project. How in the world do you organize a whole country around worship? How do you take that raw, spontaneous sound and turn it into a national orchestra? Well, David was more than just a musician. He was a brilliant organizer, and he had a meticulous plan. First, he looked to the Levites, the tribe that was already set aside for sacred duty. He laid out this whole structure, he brought in the rock star musicians of the day to lead the charge, and he basically commissioned them to write the soundtrack that would bring the whole nation into God's presence. And this was a huge logistical operation. Seriously, look at how this was broken down. Each Levitical family had a super specific, critical job. You had the Gershonites. They were basically the roadies, handling all the transport and logistics. The Kohathites, they were the security, guarding the most sacred stuff, like the Ark of the Covenant. And the Merarites handled the heavy lifting, the structural foundation. Every single part, physical and spiritual, had to run like a finely tuned instrument. All right, so David has built the machine. He's got the structure, he's got the leaders. But what happens when you flip the switch? The result of all this planning is, honestly, it's kind of mind-blowing. 33. That's the number you need to remember. For 33 straight years, David's system of worship created this non-stop symphony of praise. Can you even imagine that? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this organized national worship was just echoing through the kingdom for over 3 decades?
Now, this is where the source material points out something it sees as a pretty incredible parallel. This 33-year period of constant worship, it mirrors the 33 years of Jesus' life on earth. The idea presented is that there's a kind of divine harmony in the numbers themselves.
So, that's the echo through time, which kind of makes you wonder, what happened to the place where it all started? What is Ramah today? Well, it's still there. It's now a small Palestinian village called Ram, just a few miles north of Jerusalem. And that little spot has had a long, complicated history. I mean, it's been a Roman military base, a prosperous farming town in the Byzantine era, a crusader castle, then a small village. And the source material also notes that since 1967, it has been under Israeli occupation. So this is a place that has seen a lot and worn many different hats over the centuries.
And today, the source tells us that despite modern challenges, Aram is a thriving village. It's actually a tourist destination. And this is important because it's still home to major religious sites, like the traditional tomb of the prophet Samuel himself, the man who kicked this whole thing off. So that connection, that thread back to the ancient story, is still there.
So you go from this tiny school on a hill to a sound that literally changes a king to a national orchestra playing for decades. Ramah's story is incredible proof that one focused idea can echo through all of history, which, leaves us with a really big question to think about. What are the sounds we're creating today? What ideas are we putting out there that might just resonate for generations to come?